Welcome to The Record Show, your virtual spin around the vinyl industry. Brought to you by Radio Wasteland Records. Yes, Midland has a record store. Here's your host, Jim Gleason.
Greetings from the Wasteland and welcome to another edition of The Record Show. Got a good one headed your way today. Ken is off, so I'll take a solo look at the new releases headed your way this week. And both Katie and Heather will give a brief review of the new Weezer album, Van Weezer. But first, as many of you may know, our indie record store, Radio Wasteland, is located in Midland, Michigan. Our fair city, along with many other communities in the surrounding area, are marking 1 year since the devastating floods of 2020. Beginning on May 17th of that year, unrelenting rainfall, combined with some human failings, led to the failure of 2 dams along the Tittabawassee River. The resulting flood all but destroyed the downtown of Sanford, Michigan, and forced the evacuation of over 10,000 people from there and the Midland area. Floodwaters crept into the downtown of Midland and destroyed many riverfront homes. But large swaths of the city were also affected, as the storm drainage system overloaded and failed. Luckily, there was no loss of life throughout the event, although there were millions of dollars worth of damages to both homes and businesses. One of those severely affected by the flood of 2020 is a good friend, and a good friend of the store, Steve Carlson. Steve hosts a very popular YouTube show under the vinylcommunity tag called The Early Morning Sunday Show. Each week on the show, Steve talks about record collecting and shows off recent additions to his collection. A collection, by the way, which at one point numbered in the tens of thousands and was essentially destroyed by the floodwaters. Joining us now on the record show is someone who can speak firsthand to the type of devastation that floodwaters like the Midland 2020 floods can bring. Steve Carlson is a friend not only of the store, but a good friend of mine as well, and I thank him very much for joining us today. Steve, how are you?
I'm great, Jim. I made it through the last year without anything else happening. That's pretty good.
And that's always a plus. Before we get into what happened and how you're dealing with it, I'd like to say that first off, I feel a little apprehensive asking you to kind of revisit the events of May of 2020, but I'm also confident in the fact that you are a person who's got such a great attitude just about everything, and that's one of the traits I really admire about you, that I don't feel as bad bringing this up, because I think that you have such a great view on life that something like this is just kind of as painful as it is just a little minor bump in the greater scheme of things.
That's very true. Very true.
So let's back up a little bit. You are in a part of Midland which can be prone to floodwaters. In fact, prior to the 2020 disaster, you had experienced a little bit of that as well, first off, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple years before that, we had like a foot of water. It wasn't even a foot, maybe about eight inches of water came up in the basement. And now the thing is, where my house is at, it's not the floodwater that gets me. What hits me is they have to shut off the pump station, so the water comes up through the drain, and that's what even hit me during the flood. It was the pump stations went down and the drains filled up my basement, the water.
So lessons learned from the one previous, but you had what you thought you had your record collection pretty well protected going into 2020, correct?
I did. When we had, it was actually fun. I was filming an episode from a YouTube channel, and all of a sudden I have this warning come over the phone, and I make fun of, floodwaters coming. Oh yeah, we're not going to get much of anything. I never thought much of it, but I raised up everything a foot. I thought, okay, I've only had up to 6 inches. I'm raising this up a foot, and I thought I was good. And I left feeling confident about that everything's going to be okay.
Now, you mentioned left. That is due to an evacuation order. As things really degraded, both in the rainfall and the worrisome matter of the dams overflowing and failing, that became very, very serious. And so when that evacuation order hit, you really didn't have time to think of much of anything except get out of the way.
No, we did. My first thing I wanted to do was actually stay. I just thought, oh, if this can't, how bad can it be? I'm just going to stay. But my wife, she didn't really want to stay, but she wasn't going to leave without me. So, we left. And I guess the police came around and knocked on up. There was just me and one other neighbor staying, and they knocked on the doors and they made them leave. So, yes, we all had to get out, which is just as well. Everything got shut down, all electricity, and the house was surrounded by water.
Now, as that, it was a 3-day period, and as that progressed, you were away from the house. The news kept getting worse and worse. What were you experiencing as you were waiting this out until you could get back to your home to see what had happened?
It was hope. I just thought, you know what? It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. I mean, it was just pure positive. I had a neighbor that canoed in, and he took a picture of my house, and my house is up a little bit higher, and I could see my car that I use for work. It was okay. And I thought, okay, look, the water, I think, actually went into both of my neighbors' houses. I never once thought about the drain, but I thought, I've been spared. This will be great. And so I was feeling pretty confident that everything's going to be okay.
And then when you were allowed in, you found out the worst indeed had happened.
Yeah, you get in the house and you take that first sniff and go, uh-oh. And of course, I go right to the basement. I can go right down there, and I got to the first landing, and the water was on that first landing. It was slowly subsiding, and yeah, it hit. You could see in the dark everything floating. All the cabinets had collapsed, everything floating.
Now, folks that know you through the vinyl community and your YouTube channel know that you are an avid vinyl collector. All total, what was the number of albums that were affected in that disaster in 2020?
It was like 50 years of album CDs, 45s, and it was 12,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was the Bill Cosby, for whatever reason, was safe. It was of all of them, the Bill Cosby albums were dry. Which, is this a sign? I'm not sure, but it was okay. Crazy.
Now, I personally can attest to what had happened. You put out a call on your Facebook page for friends to look for a generator. We had one, and we brought that over. And I remember looking into your basement. The water was still way up there, and just seeing these records floating. And it broke my heart, not just because of I know what you were going through, but even as a vinyl collector, to know what you had poured into your heart and soul into this collection for so many years.
Yeah, it just, I guess you're kind of going to shock first, but it's happened. It's happened. I can't fix that. And you just kind of looked at, some of my neighbors, their whole house. I mean, their first floor was gone. Everything wiped out. Mine was just the basement. Yeah, we had a lot of stuff, but the rest of my house was happening. You could live in. How you can't really complain. People got it worse than me in the neighborhood, so records can be replaced. And what are you going to do? People like you came, other people came, brought in pumps, because that was the biggest thing. I didn't know what to do. I got a basement full of water. I didn't, there's no electricity. I have no pump. I absolutely go, well, now what? Bucket? So, and thanks, you came over. I got a couple of generators, and people brought in pumps, and yeah, we just began cleaning up.
And even then, I could tell with what you were going through, with what the city, and I'm not trying to belittle anyone else, and I know other folks in town, friends of ours, who lost their homes completely, as well. And I agree with you. Belongings can be replaced, and luckily, in this entire mess, both in Sanford and Midland and other towns downstream and ones upstream, there were no lives lost. And so that is a big plus.
Absolutely.
So again, I'm going to go back to one of the things I really admire about you and what happened with this situation was your positive attitude throughout. You could have very easily just thrown up and thrown a fit, but you didn't. You kind of stayed very positive through that. And even as you were hauling out armloads and armloads of vinyl to the curb to throw away, I think you still maintained that great attitude.
Yeah, it is a little depressing, I'm going to tell you, but I sit there and I looked and I tried to save some of the really nice vinyl albums, like an OG of the Big Stars first album. I looked for some of this. There's about 400 that I tried to save. It's just the vinyl. I don't have a cover, but it was important. And then I had some people helping me, and what would you like? If there's some records you want, let me know. And as I'm pulling this out, I'm looking for this. I had a young gal want to get into records. She wanted Pink Floyd. I gave her my entire collection of Pink Floyd. It was just the vinyl, but it was OG stuff. And there you go. Yeah. And the rest just has to go out. What are you going to do?
It's amazing. So the other thing that you talked about, people helping, there was a big troop of people going through your neighborhood, actually helping people clean up their houses and get things out to the curb. But the help for you, I think, went a little bit further. You host a very, very popular YouTube show called the Early Morning Sunday Show, rather. I see your shirt there. And you have created quite a following through the vinyl community and vinyl community tag on YouTube. And after word began to spread about what happened with you in particular, this community of record collectors across YouTube really stepped up.
Yeah, it was. That was the only time I ever got emotional in the whole thing. There's a video. I saw my first video, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, this happened. Let's help. And it's like, wow. And I had there was a GoFundMe page someone set up, and it raised a lot of money. And the records were incredible from all over the world. Seriously, all over the world. I still get records from people because of this. And so it just began to build up the record collection. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, the post office had to have been exhausted because there's just piles and piles of boxes. I mean, it was incredible. And that's the thing. Is it a tragedy or is it a triumph? It just shows what people do. And so, what's to complain? People stepped up and really did that. And it was just incredible music, really is. And I found a lot of new artists that I love because of it.
That's great. I know even at the store, we were getting calls from people who are subscribers to your channel asking how they could help and what they could do.
Yeah.
They hear you mention us a lot, which I'm always grateful for, but it was just, it was amazing on our side to even see too, what folks were doing to help you out.
Yeah, it was. So many, and you know what? If they couldn't do anything, they reached out. They just said, "Hey, we're thinking about you." All that, and that was good. It's all helpful. Some had auctions. They did auctions on YouTube to raise money. Records, and it was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And the thing, you wish you could repay everybody. Seriously, but there's so much. I got a book just filled with stuff. I said thank you notes to everybody. It's just
That's great.
Wonderful. Yeah. Good
And I
experience.
know you've dedicated a lot of time on your channel to saying thank you to a lot of these individuals as well.
Yes, very much so. As I have records that they gave me, I make sure I call it out. I'm still getting through. I've listened to every one of them, but as I show them on my channel, I still getting through them. There's too many.
Now, this brings up another point. You had mentioned that the collection that you lost in the flood was the culmination of a lifetime of vinyl loving and hunting in record stores and crate digging like crazy.
Yeah.
This event, and we have talked about this several times, as you come in once a week, and I'm always grateful of that as well. But we've talked many times about how this event has really altered your thinking and the way that you collect vinyl.
Yeah. When I was younger, my whole thought was I want the world's biggest record collection. That's why I would go into places, hit the dollar bins, whatever, and I was just buying because I wanted the biggest record collection. I heard Elton John has a bigger one than mine. That kind of bummed me out. So he has a big one. But after, now I'm in my early 60s, and so suddenly a big record collection isn't that important because I'd already been thinking about this. What are my kids going to do with it? what would they do with 12,000 records and CDs? They wouldn't know what to do. And they've told me that many times because they're not into music. So instead, I say, all right, I'm going to have a smaller collection. I'm going to contain it. I hoped my plan is about 1,500 albums. But what I want is high, good quality albums, MoFis, if I desire it. I mean, I'm not going to collect a whole artist. I'm going to get the music that I want from them. The goal would be if I reach for a record album, every single one I pull should be one that I would go, man, this is such a good album, instead of, yeah, it's an okay album. And so that's been my goal, to do that and just to find what I really desire.
In a way, though, you're not giving up that thrill of the hunt, are you? You just refined how you do it.
Absolutely. No, it's still out there. You're still going to record stores. It's just you're not coming out with piles of maybe $1, $2, just these special albums. And you know what? It doesn't have to be an OG anymore. These reissues that come out that you bring in are better sounding a lot of times than what you can find as far as an original. They're incredible. And so, it's about what really sounds good. So you get that best experience. So it isn't, now if I see a great OG on a wall or something, yeah, I'm going to probably go grab that. But for the most part, the records that I really want that I bought for $5, back in the 80s, 90s, now, they're asking 50, 60, $100. Well, the reissue, you don't have enough money to do all that, but these reissues are fantastic, and you just keep bringing in, awesome ones, and you've been a big help also in helping me replenish.
Always glad to be there for you. Is there one thing you could really look back on the past year as you get some distance from the events of May 2020 that you can really kind of point as something that you've learned or something that has changed your perspective overall?
For me, I think the biggest thing is just how I changed my thought is to limit a collection to it's difficult. I never once got rid of an album in my whole life. And now if I start getting too many, I have to weed some out. But I think for me, that's important because I want to have a collection that's really meaningful, but also something that my children can handle and deal with. It's making sure it's in Discogs. It was in Discogs before, but keeping it in there. And you should probably insure them. Yeah.
That's another piece. That's a whole nother episode, I think, coming down to it from there. So, well, Steve, one thing we also didn't talk about was your YouTube channel. Where can people find you, and how can they interact with you and enjoy your weekly foray into the wonderful world of the vinyl community?
I'm out there. It's Vinyl Community Steve Carlson on YouTube, and I have a lot. What I like is people comment. I will always comment back. I will always talk. I like to meet record collectors, and I've met a number of them in your store. And as I travel, I try to, if someone says, "Hey, I live here," if I can meet with that person, that's great. Let's go have a beer, lunch, dinner, go record shopping. I don't care because it's this interaction with people, which is records are great, but interacting with our fellow collectors is just probably one of my most favorite things. And YouTube, this YouTube channel has allowed me to do that.
That is great. And so, folks, I would really strongly suggest that they check you out, seek you out and find you, and enjoy you and Kat's
Right.
weekly foray. So.
Yes. Cat. It's Cat's channel. He's outside. It wouldn't bother me, but and I'm just the co-host of the thing.
Just the co-host on there.
4 a.m. on Sunday, so it's always Sunday morning every week, and it's been over years. Even during the flood, I still had my broadcast.
There we go. Well, Steve Carlson, thank you again so much, and again, thank you for everything you bring to the world of vinyl collecting, and thank you for being a part of our little family here at the Wasteland as well. Couldn't imagine Sundays without you coming in and chatting for a while.
See, that's consistent too. Every Sunday. So it's my pleasure. I tell you, and Jim, I absolutely love your store, and my wife doesn't like it as much.
Well, that doesn't stop her from
I-
coming in from time to time, though, I've noticed.
Exactly.
So,
Yes. She knows where to go to get me something. Go see Jim. So
there we
I
go.
appreciate it. And thanks for, time to put me on the show.
Thanks again, Steve.
You bet.
So, as we'd mentioned earlier, Ken Norton can't be with us this week for our typical look at new releases, so I'll try to cover them. It's a bit of a lighter week as it is anyhow. The biggest of which was supposed to be the Black Keys release of Delta Cream, coming on both a black vinyl and an indie exclusive, but much like the Greta Van Fleet release from a few weeks back, the indie exclusive release of the Black Keys has been rationed severely by the label. So if you get a chance, hopefully you can find one at your local indie store. If not, they should be out in a couple of weeks as well. Also, new stuff coming from St. Vincent this week, an album called Daddy's Home. That one also has an indie exclusive version. And something new from Ryan Adams, his first new album in 3 years. That is a double LP and comes with a bonus 7-inch. The album, by the way, is called Wednesdays. Also look out for a 50th anniversary half-speed remaster of Paul McCartney's Ram album, as well as a big package anniversary release of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young's Deja Vu. And finally, there is an interesting one. This pops up every year or so with a different color vinyl, but Marilyn Monroe, an album called The Essential Masters, this time being reissued on red and black splatter vinyl. So keep up on all of the new releases, headed to an indie record store near you, and Ken will be back with us next week for a full list of that week's releases.
Then Weezer, the new album just came out May 7th. I liked it. Did you like it?
I did like it, and I wasn't quite sure if I was going to because it got pumped up as this big arena, lots of guitars. Like I was expecting, we're going to have a metal
It's going to
record.
sound exactly like Van Halen,
It's a Weezer record.
It sounds exactly
So
what
I
you
like
would
it.
expect from Weezer.
Yeah, I like it just fine. Once I got rid of my preconceptions.
So originally it was supposed to release last year, right around when, COVID hit. And so they pushed it back another year. And it was also supposed to release right around when they were going on their big arena tour with Green Day, Fall Out Boy, all together. And they were all supposed to release these new albums that were supposed to be so fun and great.
It's going to be a good show, too.
It didn't happen. And now that concert is just cut indefinitely.
Yeah. Oh, but in that time, Eddie Van Halen passed away, and so was born the dedication, and it's dedicated to Eddie Van Halen and Rick Ocasek.
Yes.
Sorry, Rick.
And it's just a very Weezer album. You can hear sort of the influences, very much so. I mean, there's an album that just starts with Crazy Train,
Yeah, like it literally just starts with Crazy Train.
But a song that starts with Crazy
and the
Train.
Van Halen influence really, really strong. But you can hear the other stuff. Like I think Rick Ocasek being dedicated to him because Weezer is still there. It's poppy. We were dancing. We were already singing along. We did 2 listens through, and we were already singing along by the second listen.
It's exactly what you'd expect from Rivers Cuomo. Very pop, heavy guitar.
Yep.
Exactly what you'd expect.
Yep.
It's also bright pink vinyl.
Oh yeah, super pretty.
It's so gorgeous. Highly recommend this album.
Yes.
If you are a fan of Weezer, or if you like the Blue album. It sounds a lot like the Blue album.
It does. It's, same producer. Am I
Not
correct?
the same
no,
producer.
It's the Black album.
Same producer
right?
as the Black album, which is also the same producer as Panic! At the Disco's last 2 albums.
And let's give her a shout out, Susie Shin.
Susie
Not
Shin.
a lot of female producers out there making it happen. So
And she's only
way to
produced
rock it, girl.
2 albums, so I'm a fan.
Yeah, me too. We became fans of a producer. So thanks, Weezer.
The fishes are my friends underneath the sea, swimming all around. They want to
Thanks for watching The Record Show. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe to the Radio Wasteland Records YouTube channel. And be sure to hit that notifications bell so you'll be alerted every time we upload new content.